We live in a society of reboots where Hollywood has run out of ideas, so they just remake old stuff. But sometimes there are reboots and reimaginings that I actually want. Babylon 5, Highlander, two projects I would love to see remade. And one other one that's been rumoured for quite a while. Farscape? Hmm. Welcome to Sidetrack, your sci-fi TV and movie channel. In 1999, we got Farscape on our television screens, and this was a series that generally proper sci fi fans adored. It actually regularly tops polls of Sci Fi Channel's best TV shows ever, and regularly appears on top 10 best sci fi series ever. It was done in co-production between Hallmark and Jim Henson Productions, and we got to see a lot of Jim Henson's work in the series. Obviously, Jim Henson is the master of puppetry, and his son Brian Henson has carried on that tradition admirably. I actually loved that element of the show, and we got to see makeup and puppets that really we didn't get to see in many other things. It felt very much like a Henson TV show, and that's one of the reasons why I loved it. Now, Jim Henson and his company is obviously famous for more child related things, obviously, the Muppets. Now, if you are a regular sidetracker, you will know that one of our very committed fans, Shelley, is a massive Muppets fan. And if you go on our Facebook page and scroll down, you will see lots of Muppet related images because we love Shelley, she loves Muppets, so we provide her with as much Muppet related content as we can. I personally am a massive Muppets fan. It's the chef. Put the chicken in the butt. I just love the chef and Animal as well. He was always my favorite.
Animal, why don't you tell our audience how long have you been playing the drums? 1, 2, 3, 5.
But they also did things like Fraggle Rock.
Down at Fraggle Rock.
Great TV show. Again, one of my favorites when I was a kid. Some brilliant movies over the years, like Dark Crystal, and obviously Sesame Street with the Count.
Oh, greetings! It is I, the Count, and it's time to answer that fascinating question. What is the Sesame Street number of the day?
One. Just, we all grew up with Jim Henson. And Farscape was their attempt at making a proper grown-up sci-fi show. And my God, did it work. But is there a plan to reboot the series and bring it back? Now, apparently, this has been rumoured for quite some time. I've actually heard this rumour several times over the last year. I've got to the point now where I can tell you this rumour because I think it's a bit more than a rumor. I think it's fair to say that Brian Henson and Brian Henson's company has been trying to reboot Farscape. Whether they're going to be successful or not, we'll come back to in a minute. But I'd just like to give you a little bit of a history of Brian Henson and Jim Henson's company over the last few years. So the company was actually started in 1958 by Jim and Jane Henson. They obviously brought us all of those amazing shows I discussed a few minutes ago, as well as some amazing movies. And also they provided the puppets and the puppetry work for lots of amazing movies. They also now own a recording studio where, I mean, honestly, go and have a look at the list of some of the albums that have been recorded at Jim Henson's studios. They're phenomenal. They're obviously masters of sound, and I just love it. They still have a creative workshop, and they still do a lot of puppetry work for lots of TV shows and movies. And they're obviously still doing a few different television shows. But Disney own the Muppets now. Brian Henson's company sold it to them in 2004, along with Bear in the Big Blue House. Now, could Farscape actually return? It's difficult. Now, again, like I say, I've heard this from several different sources, and I've actually heard whispers that even some of the actors from the show have been discussing the possibility. Now, this had some great actors. Ben Browder and Claudia Black then joined SG-1 after the Peacekeepers series in 2004. The relationship between Viola and Daniel, for example, was just some of the best bits of those last two series. Their love-hate relationship and some of the comedy we then got because of that relationship was just glorious. The will they, won't they in those two seasons was amazing. And then we got to see that relationship come to fruition, if only for a short period, when they were stuck on the ship in that time vortex. Now, we can hope that time would have repeated itself and that relationship would have blossomed once again. But if it didn't, at least it did in that little bubble of time. I would love Ben Browder and Claudia Black to return, and I would actually love Farscape to not be a hard reboot, but a continuation of the story, a revival of the series. It's very fashionable at the moment to revive old series, as it has been for quite some time. And if you're going to revise a series like this, I'd love the Sci-Fi Network to get on it. But there is a major problem. The IP, the intellectual property, who actually owns Farscape, is a little bit of a minefield. So it was co-produced, as I said, by Hallmark and Brian Henson Productions. Now, Brian Henson Productions has gone through quite a few changes in the last few years, and Hallmark, well, they're not the powerhouse they were a few years ago. There is also a little bit of a problem because there is an Australian network involved as well, and they might own certain elements of the rights. So, who owns the rights is the major problem. And then who would finance the project is the next. This obviously seems to me like a show that would go on to something like the Sci-Fi Network, but the Sci-Fi Network don't have the money to produce a TV show to a decent standard, is my feeling. I'm looking at The Ark, a recent television series written by Dean Devlin and Jonathan Glassner. You would think that would get a decent budget, but to be honest, even though I quite like the story and I even quite like the actors, the budget is a problem. Now, I actually released a short video just saying, hey, this isn't a bad show, give it a go. I watched the opening episode, but I did say, look, the budget is a problem. You're going to have to look past it. But to be honest, as the episodes have gone on, it's become more of a problem. It's becoming harder to look past. Now, Farscape was never a big budget project. It's a bit like Babylon 5. It's got a cult following that saw past that. But they really were able to maximize everything they could. They put every dollar of their budget on the screen. And if this was to be done by the Sci-Fi Network, they'd have to do that again. Now, I'd have thought this would go to a streaming service. I could see something like Apple TV snapping this up, or even Amazon Prime. The problem is the streaming service wars that we've had in the last few years is coming to an end. They are being far more careful on what they spend money on. And I can't see a streaming service risking this. Look at the problems that J. Michael Straczynski is having getting his Babylon 5 reimagining up and running. He's having massive problems, and one of the main reasons is money. Nobody quite has the trust in a Babylon 5 reboot to actually put their money where their mouth is. Now, I've heard rumors very recently that actually Warner Brothers is going to do that, and it will go into HBO Max. So maybe that gives Farscape a chance too. If Babylon 5 was to return and be successful, maybe that would give somebody else the confidence to put a few million quid up and give Farscape a chance too. Now, everything I've heard recently is that this is one of those projects that even though Brian Henson would absolutely adore the chance to do, it really is hitting a brick wall. If we want a Farscape revival, we're going to have to talk about it. We're going to have to tweet and we're going to have to get people interested. Because at the moment, it's looking very unlikely. But if they were to revive it, it's one of those shows I 100% would love to see. We got Quantum Leap. Nobody asked for it. And we got it. So why couldn't we get Farscape? I'd love you guys to get into the comments and tell me exactly what you think. Is Farscape a project you would like to see brought back? Would you like to see a hard reboot? Or, like me, would you actually like to see a clever continuation? And how many puppets do you want in this series? I'm voting many. I'd love to know exactly what you're thinking. If you are new to the channel, please like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. It really helps us out and you will never miss any of our future videos. Also, you can go on to Patreon, where I put most of our videos on before YouTube. So you can get to see it before everybody else for a small fee and without the adverts. As always, please stay safe and I'll see you next time.